Alright, this is another Victoria 3 tips and tricks video of, hey, I made mistakes, don't repeat them. So I've got my game up here as part of the Papal Run playthrough that I was going to post, except the problem is the game's $18.99, I only get about 2 to 3 years now every episode, and it's only getting worse. So this turned into like a 60 episode series, with one-hour episodes, and I just don't think people are willing to watch that, so I'm not going to bother with finishing it up. Or, I will play it, but I'm not going to bother uploading it to YouTube just because I don't think anyone really wants to see it. So some of the things I wanted to point out is, one, combat and offensive capabilities are going to get a lot harder. You knew that. Everyone knows that that's been doing history because as you keep advancing, armies get more and more of a defensive slant. Your artillery still helps you a little bit more. It goes from even to a little bit offensive. Trench infantry, 40-60. And then it's also slower. You could get bike messengers, get a little bit of an offense there, not much. Motorized reconnaissance takes some time. And then what's really going to set it over is machine guns. Now, I haven't even got machine guns, but once you do, you are just completely a defensive juggernaut. Combine that with some good stats on generals, weighted to defense, it's going to be amazing. The other thing I'm going to talk about is a lot more about warfare. So I had a fight go on against, but I was the Papal States here. I was fighting Sardinia Piedmont. Why? Of course, I wanted to conquer them. Here's where it gets tricky. Austria was going to come in and defend them. I knew that. I was aware of that. So I thought, okay, I've got two generals here. Well, there were 100 each. Okay, the Austria border, just purely defensive. We've got great defensive stats. I take the defensive generals, stick them there, and they will just break on us like waves. The other general was, and I had this province at the time, spoiler, I ended up losing the war and having to release it. But excuse me if the coughing's still sick. The other army was stationed over here. It was going to go into Sardinia Piedmont, and it was going to rush them down because their military was a lot weaker. Now, there's a few things wrong with this theory. First of all, allies can shift troops over. I was expecting the Austrian troops to come from only the Austrian front. That is wrong. A bunch of Austrian troops showed up on the Sardinia Piedmont front. The other thing that really screwed me up, and why you see me having 3 generals, is lo and behold. Let's go to diplomacy. Oh, god damn it. Go to diplomacy. Here we go. Sardinia Piedmont. They have an alliance with Parma. What the actual hell? Because let's also take a look at Parma. They're my dominion. So, Parma ends up coming in. So you're thinking, well, these are 3 states next to each other. It's just one continuous front then. Oh, hell no. There's 3 separate states now. There's the Austrian front against me. There's the Parma front against me. And there's the Sardinian Piedmont front. So part of the issue is then I tried to say, okay, well, still try to rush down Sardinia Piedmont with a good general. We'll split off a little bit onto this other general you see here. He'll just try to hold Parma, because Parma is so small and only has 3 battalions. Okay, well, he'll hold there and it'll be okay. And then, another big stinking army will hold here against Austria. Once again, to the problem. Austria will shift its forces to the other fronts. It will spread them out. So suddenly there's good Austrian troops on every front, not just on their own. And that's how I ended up getting defeated. Because, spoiler alert, there was nobody on this front line. They rushed forward. That threw my armies into complete disarray, because when there's no enemy, of course, enemy armies advance freely and quickly. I get that, but you've got to be careful about the special fronts, because I had even fallen back after a loss, so it looked like, okay, there's only 2 fronts. Then we won another fight, pushed forward, there was 3, but one of my armies got out of position, and suddenly they just rushed ahead before my army could come back and start defending. So they just rushed through, took all of basically central Italy. Then we had a little stalemate down here, and I ended up having to capitulate automatically in the game. So, learn from my lesson. Step 1, count the number of fronts. Be careful Dominions apparently can make their own alliances and fight you, even though they're loyal. They were loyal before, they loved me before, but they stalled that stupid alliance, and god damn it, they went with it. Okay? So step 1, watch that. Step 2, number of units under a general matters. You want as few generals as possible commanding the maximum amount of troops possible. That also applies to admirals. Okay? Now on the naval side of things, let's take a look at my navy down here. It was a lot better than the Austrian Navy, quality-wise, not quantity-wise. Spoiler alert. So we've got monitors there. Did not do destroyers. Should have done destroyers. Didn't do it. And then a little bit of commerce raiders. Once again, could have done torpedo boats. Didn't. And then we've got the good doctrine. Okay? But really, we've got monitors. What the hell was Austria fielding? Let me show you. Yeah, man-o-wars. Okay? So we've got man-o-wars with and a shortage against my ships. Now, they did have torpedo boats, which actually helped them a bit. But still, looking at the numbers there, now look at the numbers over here. Way stinking stronger. 78 and 78, okay? So, I had 2 fleets originally, a 13 and a 14. They're both over here to convoy raid. That was a mistake. They should have been only under one admiral, because they picked off one of the fleets. The other fleet didn't help, despite the fact they were both told to convoy raid, same node, right there, everything's happy. So, I get a 40 squadron fleet of Austrian man-o-wars coming in versus only about 13 or 14, I forget which exactly, of my way better ships, but they ended up winning. Why? Because my fleets did not reinforce each other. So afterwards, I then combined them, sent them back out, and they did much, much better and won. But that's the difference. Do not have your fleets split up if you want them to work together. They need to be under the same admiral, because fleets will not reinforce worth a goddamn bit. Same thing with generals. You want your generals to be commanding as many troops as possible. You want as few fronts as possible. And also, be careful. You need to hunt for good generals. It's not the greatest stats here. Yeah, he's got a higher command limit. Okay, that's great. The problem is, what does he really need? He's going to command up to 130 guys, fine. But what we really need are offensive or defensive traits. Where's the other general? Here we go. Expert offensive planner. Beautiful. Plus 30% on the offense. You need it. It's a very great trait. At the same time, defensive traits. You want a general specifically kind of stacked with one or the other, because you want to stack as many offensive traits as possible, or you want to stack as many defensive traits as possible. If they're a mix, it doesn't really help you. So look at this guy, plus 30% right there, and another plus 30. So you want to stack traits as much as possible. He's also wrathful, which goes both ways. So another thing I messed up in the war was I still tried to rush down. I had a small amount of troops on the line here. So let's take a look. How does it select your troops? The correct answer is it's by percentage. It just rounds robins your troops. So I've got 3 generals. We got 1 field marshal, 2 field marshals, baby bitch general, level 1, brigadier. Okay, you only can have 20 brigades. But watch what happens when we promote them. So we've got about 180 just under battalions. It's 174. Once we promote him, spoiler alert, it's going to rejuggle it. He's now up to 29. Promote him again. He's up to 40. Promote him all the way. One more. So suddenly it's an even split. So what I should have done is go with an even split, because then each general had a max amount of troops they possibly could, and way more troops would have been in the fight, rather than just small amounts of battalions ending up in the fight. Now, I don't know where the actual algorithms and numerical equations are for how exactly fights kick off. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I know I would have been much better off in the fighting rather than having a stacked front and an unstacked front instead of splitting the 3 fronts, because my defensive power is very high. I could have held 3 fronts had I separated out the troops. I had a few more troops at the time, because spoiler alert, once again, I lost some territory. So do not make my mistake there. And do not make my mistake on the naval front. The other thing, too, is when you're trying to form Italy, you're on a bit of a time span. I've kind of missed my window here, if you will. because until I start getting gas attacks. So let's take a look. It's until I start getting gas attacks or things that really up my offense. Look at that, plus 50 offense, big deal. Until you start doing things like that, you will not advance. So the other problem is you're probably thinking, well, let's have some defensive specialized troops, then have some offensive specialized troops, and try to separate them under a commander. The offensive troops, of course, go on to the offensive commander. The defensive troops go into the defensive commander. I have no stinking way to know how to make that work. I have tried to look into how to make it work. I can't tell you how. I can see the battalions, I can see their garrison, but I have no clue how the hell to transfer troops between generals. I just see the troops get automatically assigned, but I don't know how to transfer them, which was also a major issue because I had an original general with about, I think, this is a while ago, about 7 squadrons. But then I had another 7 squadrons in reserve. I have no freaking clue how to transfer them. So what I did do was I got a second general, a second admiral, excuse me. So then assigned him to the correct theater where the ships were. So then I had 7 and 7. And then I fired the admiral I recruited, and all the other ships automatically went to the other admiral. So that was my workaround. So if you're trying to tailor offensive troops and defensive troops, I don't know how to keep them separated and get them to the general you want. So keep that in mind. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It may exist. I hope it exists. In fact, let me be very candid. I really do hope it exists. I just don't know how to do it, and I have not seen a way. And because I've not seen a way, for now, I've just got to assume it doesn't exist. Because I've gone around, I've tried to play with the theater, tried to figure out what it would be to possibly move them between. No clue. Click on the headquarter, nothing. So, I don't know. Click that, try to make it work, don't know. Go to the military lens. It's nothing to really go around with. You can, select troops to build. Select naval bases to build. Once again, I just don't know how to get them to work like that. So, those are some of my warnings. Oh, and another final warning as it relates to colonialism. I went down here trying to think like, oh, look, there's 26 coal in this state. We'll expand fast enough. We'll grab some coal mines. This took forever. And this is what I ended up with. 4 coal mines, and I don't have the population count there to run it. Why? Severe malaria. Now, when you're starting to colonize at the beginning, you take a little while. You're going to be a little bit slower, play some like the Papal States. Other people can colonize like almost immediately. You need to get quinine to go into the severe malaria states, or you're just screwed. Well, you're just screwed as in you just can't do it. One of the places I missed is you come over here to Celebes. Celebes, how the hell you pronounce it. I only came to here way later and started colonizing, but look at that. Not severe malaria, just malaria. It's a lot faster, and trust me, these states expand so much faster. That extra 5% is a huge stinking deal. It really is. So if you need to do a colony right off the bat, I would recommend Celebes for the reason of you get rubber eventually there, but then dye right off the beginning. Dye is pretty exceptional because it's good for your textile mills, but if you're in Europe, you're basically the only way to get it at the beginning is to import it from somebody else. So there's other things like coffee I didn't look into, and tobacco and tea. These seem to just be substitute goods, so you're okay with that. But yeah, so those are kind of some of my recommendations and pitfalls I fell into that I hope you don't. So just as a quick recap, make sure you know the amount of fronts, or it'll start warping your generals around. They'll just get kind of shuffled, almost like the Hearts of Iron 4 division shuffling shit. And then you will just have an open front where the enemy is running through and there is nothing you can do about it. So be very careful to know the amount of troops on the fronts. Also, do not try to overstack fronts. The AI will spread out troops. And if you don't have enough troops on that front to hold, it will be a major problem. So make sure you know the amount of troops are on the front. Do not expect Austria just to come from the Austrian front, Parma from the Parma front, and Sardinia-Piedmont from its own front. It will not happen. They will, especially a big boy like Austria with 450 troops or so. they're going to spread around all their troops and help out their weaker allies. So be very, very mindful of that. So those are kind of my quick tips and tricks for today. Thank you for watching. And like I said, if you know some way to actually move troops, specific troops, so saying I want all Rome troops to be under General A, but I want all Tuscany troops to be under General B, I would love for somebody to please tell me in the chat, because that would be exceptional. Because then you could do, the Tuscany troops are the defensive troops. They've got the machine guns, they got the max defense stats, and then, Rome's the offensive troops. They're the ones who gas attack, or your stormtroopers, or anything that's going to help you break the deadlock. So, yep, that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.